I spent my savings on a house for my son. And for his girlfriend. 3 doors down from mine. Close enough to see their porch light at night. I paid the wedding deposit too. Proud to give them a beginning. The teal dress hung by my door. Ready. Waiting. Champagne shoes broken in for the photographs I had imagined. His arm. My smile. A family preserved. I asked about the date on a Monday. The message came Tuesday afternoon. We married yesterday. Just family. Confetti emojis blinked on my screen. I stood very still. In the silence of my own house. Erased from theirs. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. My name is Ruth Ellison. I am 68 years old. I spent 40 years as a city archivist. I know how to handle brittle paper. I know how to keep edges clean. I thought my own life would be treated with the same care. I was wrong. The text came on a Tuesday afternoon. I was in the kitchen. The lemon was bright yellow under my fingers. I was zesting it for pound cake. The recipe was Alan's mother's. She wrote it on an index card in 1967. The card still smelled like vanilla if you held it close. My phone buzzed on the counter. I wiped my hands on my apron. The apron had flour dust across the front. The message was from Brianna. She is my son's girlfriend. They have been together for 3 years. Living in the house I bought for them with my savings. Planning their future. Talking about the wedding. The text said we did it yesterday. Then it said just family. There was a confetti emoji at the end. I read it twice. The words did not change. A voice note appeared below the text. It was 1 second long. I pressed play. In the background I heard my son Jason laugh. It was the laugh he used to have on snow days. Loose and boyish and full of light. The joke was me. I set the phone down next to the cookies. The cookies were still warm. They were Jason's favorite when he was 12. Chocolate chip with sea salt on top. I had baked them that morning. I had planned to bring them to the wedding. The wedding I thought was happening this Saturday. The wedding I had been preparing for. My hand did not shake. My breath did. I closed the tin. The lid made a soft click. Like closing a book. Like sealing a story that was already over. I looked at the dress hanging by the front door. It was pale teal, the color of robin's eggs in spring. I had steamed it the night before. The wrinkles were gone. The fabric looked soft and ready. The shoes were lined up beneath it. Low heels in champagne satin. I had broken them in by walking around the house. 3 nights in a row. So my feet would not hurt during the ceremony. So I could stand through the photos without wincing. I had imagined those photos. Me standing beside Jason. Him in a dark suit. Me holding his arm. Both of us smiling. The mother and the son. I had imagined it so clearly. Now I stood in my kitchen. Flour on my apron. Lemon zest under my nails. And I understood. Just family did not include me. I walked to the front door. I touched the dress. The fabric was cool and smooth. I unhooked the hanger. I carried the dress upstairs. My legs felt heavy. Not weak. Just weighted. Like I was moving through water. I hung the dress in the back of my closet. Behind the winter coats. Behind the things I do not look at often. I came back downstairs. I picked up the shoes. They were light in my hands. I put them back in their box. I slid the box onto the shelf. Next to Alan's old running sneakers. The ones I could not throw away. I returned to the kitchen. The lemon sat on the cutting board. Half zested. The pound cake recipe was open on the counter. I had marked my place with a wooden spoon. I closed the book. I put the lemon in the refrigerator. I wiped down the counter. I moved slowly. Each task had its own small border. This is what grief teaches you. You do one thing, then you do the next thing. You do not look too far ahead. I poured myself a glass of water. I drank it standing at the sink. Outside the window, Mrs. Patel was watering her roses. She waved. I waved back. She could not see my face clearly from that distance. That was a mercy. I sat down at the kitchen table. The table Alan and I bought at an estate sale. 32 years ago. We had stripped the varnish together. Sanded it smooth. Painted it cream. The surface still held small dents. From homework. From projects. From Jason's toy cars dragged across the wood. I ran my hand over those dents now. My phone was still on the counter. I did not pick it up. I did not call Jason. I did not ask why. I already knew. An invitation would have come before the wedding. Not after. This was not an accident. This was a choice. I thought about the venue deposit I had paid. 5 months ago. I thought about the photographer I had recommended. The florist I had called. The small things I had offered. Because that is what mothers do. We offer. We prepare. We show up. I had shown up for Jason his entire life. When he had pneumonia at 7. When he broke his wrist at 14. When he lost his job at 29. When he needed a place to stay at 32. When Brianna moved in with him. I welcomed her. I made space. I paid for things they could not afford. Rent they promised to pay back. Insurance premiums. A car repair. A dental bill. Deposits on things they called opportunities. I never asked for the money back. I thought we were building something. A family. A future. But yesterday they got married. And I was not there. Because yesterday was just family. I sat at the table until the light changed. The afternoon sun moved across the floor. It made a long gold rectangle on the tile. Then it faded. I thought about Alan. He died 4 years ago. Quietly. In his sleep. The way he did everything. If he were here now, he would put his hand on my shoulder. He would not say anything. He would just stand there. Solid and warm. But Alan was not here. And Jason had gotten married without me. I stood up. I put my glass in the sink. I folded the dish towel. I turned off the kitchen light. I walked through the house room by room. I checked the locks. I turned off the lamps. I did what I always did. In the hallway I paused by the photo wall. Jason at 5 holding a pumpkin. Jason at 10 missing his front teeth. Jason at 18 in his graduation gown. Jason at 30 holding Brianna's hand. All of it still there. All of it still true. But something had shifted. The story I thought I was in had changed shape. I was no longer the mother at the wedding. I was the mother who was left out. I climbed the stairs. I brushed my teeth. I washed my face. I put on my nightgown. The fabric was soft from years of washing. I got into bed. The sheets smelled like lavender. I had washed them on Sunday. I lay in the dark. The house was quiet. Outside a dog barked twice. Then stopped. I did not cry. Crying would come later. Right now I just lay there. Breathing in. Breathing out. Trying to understand how I had become optional. How love had turned into a list I was not on. I thought about the text again. We did it yesterday. Just family. I closed my eyes. In the dark I said one word. Not to anyone. Just to the silence. Just to the night. I said noted. And I meant it. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. Alan died on a Wednesday in March. 4 years ago now. The house learned to hold silence differently after that. Grief is loud at first. Then it learns to whisper. I learned the whisper version quickly. Pack lunches for one. Fix the leaky faucet myself. Write checks with a steady hand. Jason came to Sunday dinners. We watched bad movies on the couch. My roast chicken never photographed well. But it always disappeared. We built a rhythm that way. Small and careful. Mother and son. Just the two of us. Then Brianna arrived. It was a Tuesday in September. 3 years ago this fall. She brought buttercream cupcakes in a pink box. She called me Ms. Ruth. Her voice was sweet and careful. Like she had practiced. Jason stood behind her smiling. The kind of smile that asks for permission. I said yes before he asked the question. They needed a place to stay. Just for a few months. Just until they got on their feet. I had some savings put aside. Since Alan died, I had guarded that money, meant for my old age. But when Jason and Brianna asked, I didn't hesitate. I emptied my savings and helped them make a down payment. Bought them a house. It was 3 doors down on the same street. Close enough that at night I could see their porch light from my bedroom window. They moved in that Saturday. 2 suitcases. A lamp. A box of books. Brianna hugged me at the door. She smelled like vanilla and hope. The months learned to multiply. September became December. December became spring. They talked about looking for apartments. But the rent was always too high. Or the timing was wrong. Or something else came up. I did not push. The house had heat and light now. It had people living in it again. That felt like enough. In January the insurance bill came. Jason called me from work. His voice was tight and small. He said they were short this month. He said just this once. I paid it. In March the car broke down. A hybrid they had bought used. The repair was expensive. I covered it. In May Brianna needed surgery. Something minor but necessary. The copay was more than they had saved. I wrote the check. In July there was a business opportunity. A deposit for equipment. A chance to start something new. I transferred the money. Each time they said thank you. Each time they said they would pay me back. I did not ask when. I did not keep a ledger. This is what mothers do. We cover gaps. We smooth edges. We make space. By August they were talking about the wedding. Finally getting married. Making it official. Brianna showed me pictures on her phone. Dresses with lace. Flowers in mason jars. Venues with string lights. Her eyes were bright when she talked. Jason held her hand and nodded. I felt something warm in my chest. Like I was being let in. Like I was part of the planning. In September they found a venue. A barn an hour north. It needed a deposit to hold the date. They did not have it yet. I offered before they asked. I wrote the check at the kitchen table. Brianna hugged me hard. She said I was saving them. She said she could not wait for me to see it. I believed her. In October I asked about the date. They said probably spring, maybe April or May, when the weather was nice. When the wildflowers were out. I started thinking about what to wear. Something that would not upstage the bride. Something elegant but understated. I found the dress in November. Pale teal. Soft fabric that moved when I walked. I hung it by the front door. So I would see it. So I would remember something good was coming. In December I recommended a photographer. A woman I knew from the library board. She did beautiful work. Natural light and honest faces. Brianna said she would call her. In January I called a florist. I asked about seasonal flowers. What would look best in a barn? What would last in the heat? I took notes on the back of an envelope. I thought I was being helpful. I thought I was being included. In February they said the date was set. April 20th, a Saturday. I marked it on my calendar in red pen. I counted the weeks. I bought the champagne-colored shoes. I broke them in walking around the house. 3 nights in a row. I wanted to be ready. I wanted everything to be perfect. In March I asked about the details. Time and place. What they needed from me. Brianna said they were still finalizing things. She said she would let me know. Her voice was light and vague. I did not press. Brides have a lot to manage. I understood that. In early April I asked again. Jason said soon. He said they were just ironing out the guest list. I nodded. I waited. I baked his favorite cookies. Chocolate chip with sea salt. I thought I would bring them to the wedding. On April 18th I steamed the dress. I polished the shoes. I wrapped the cookies in a tin. Everything was ready. I was ready. On April 19th I heard nothing. I thought maybe they were busy. Last-minute preparations. Nerves and excitement. I did not want to intrude. April 20th came and went a Saturday. Nothing. The text arrived the following Tuesday afternoon. We did it yesterday. While I was zesting a lemon. We did it yesterday. Just family. I stood in my kitchen. Flour on my apron. The dress hanging by the door. The shoes lined up beneath it. The cookies still warm. And I understood. The wedding had happened without me. The date had been moved. Or maybe it had never been April 20th. Maybe that was a lie. A soft one. One designed to keep me distant. I thought about all the money. The insurance. The car. The surgery. The deposits. The venue I had paid for. The wedding that had just happened. Without me. I did not call Jason. I did not ask why. I knew why. Just family meant Brianna's family. Not mine. I had paid for a wedding I was not invited to. I had funded my own exclusion. The thought sat in my chest like a stone. Heavy and cold. I put the cookies away. I hung the dress in the back of my closet. I put the shoes in their box. I moved through the house turning off lights. I did not cry. Not yet. I just moved. One task after another. This is what grief teaches you. You survive by not stopping. That night I lay in bed. My own house was quiet. But I thought of the house I had bought with my savings. Its lights glowed in the dark. Laughter drifted through the night air. Soft and easy. They were celebrating. In the house I had given them. With the money I had provided. Without me. I closed my eyes. I did not sleep. I just lay there. Breathing in. Breathing out. Choosing silence. Because what was there to say? They had made their choice. Now I would make mine. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. 2 days passed. Wednesday and Thursday. I watered the plants. I sorted the mail. I did not call Jason. He did not call me. On Friday morning my phone rang. I was folding laundry in the bedroom. The sheets were warm from the dryer. They smelled like lavender. I looked at the screen. It was Jason. I almost did not answer. But habit is stronger than hurt sometimes. I pressed the green button. I said hello. Jason's voice was bright and distant. Like someone calling from a party. He said they wanted to thank me. He said Brianna was grateful for everything. He said the wedding was beautiful. Small and intimate. Just what they wanted. He did not say he was sorry. He did not explain. I said that was nice. My voice was flat and careful. He did not seem to notice. He said they would come by soon. Maybe Sunday for dinner. I said maybe. Then I said I had to go. He said okay. He said he loved me. The words sounded true. But words are just sounds sometimes. I hung up. I finished folding the sheets. On Saturday afternoon the voicemail came. I was in the garden pulling weeds. The soil was damp and dark. My knees hurt from kneeling. I stood up to stretch. That is when I saw it. A voicemail notification. From Jason's number. Left 20 minutes earlier. I pressed play. At first there was only noise. Rustling. A car engine. Voices in the distance. Then Jason's voice came through. Low and clear. He was talking to Brianna. He did not know the phone was recording. It was a pocket dial. An accident. He said something about the drive-through. Brianna laughed. Then Jason said something that made my chest go cold. He said once she is out of the way. He said the trust unlocks. Brianna laughed again. She said Paris before tax season. I heard the sound of cups clinking. Like a toast. Like a celebration. I stood in the garden. Phone in my hand. Dirt under my nails. The sun was bright overhead. Everything looked normal. But nothing was. I pressed replay. I listened again. Once she is out of the way. The trust unlocks. Paris before tax season. I did not need to hear it a third time. Archivists know when one copy is enough. I saved the voicemail. I went inside. I washed my hands at the kitchen sink. The water was cold. I dried them on a dish towel. Then I walked to the study. The file cabinet sat in the corner. Dark green metal. 4 drawers. Alan and I had labeled them together. 10 years ago. Before he got sick. Before everything changed. I opened the second drawer. The files were organized alphabetically. I found the one marked trust. The folder was thick. I pulled it out. I sat down at Alan's old desk. The chair creaked under my weight. I opened the folder. The trust document was on top. 43 pages. Legal language dense as fog. But I knew what it said. Alan and I had written it together. With a lawyer who understood blended families. Who understood second marriages. Who understood protection. The language was careful. Successor trustee Ruth Ellison. Distributions require active and respectful participation. In the family unit, the words were clumsy, but the meaning was clear. Love was required. Presence was required. Respect was required. Jason had failed all 3. There was a contingency clause too. On page 37, Alan had insisted on it. He said people change. He said circumstances shift. He said we needed a deadbolt. One only I could turn. The clause allowed me to freeze the trust. To lock it behind reinforced provisions. To make it untouchable. If I felt the beneficiary was acting against my welfare. The language was precise. The power was absolute. I read it twice. Then I picked up the phone. I called Sandra Cho. She answered on the second ring. Sandra had been a church volunteer when we met. 15 years ago. She went to law school in her 40s. Now she practiced estate law. She knew families. She knew money. She knew betrayal. I told her I needed to lock the trust. She did not ask why. She just said when. I said today. She said come now. I drove to her office. It took 20 minutes. The building was small and brick. Her name was on the door in gold letters. She met me in the lobby. She looked at my face. She did not smile. She just nodded. We went to her office. The desk was covered in files. A coffee cup sat next to her computer. Half full and cold. She cleared a space. She opened her laptop. She pulled up the trust document. She asked if I was sure. I played her the voicemail. She listened without moving. When it finished, she closed her eyes. Then she opened them. She said people are astonishing. Not in a good way. She started typing. The amendments took an hour to draft. Every distribution now required my written approval. Every request now required documented need. Every action now required proof of good faith. The trust was no longer automatic. It was conditional, and I held every condition. Sandra printed the documents. 3 copies. She called a notary, a woman named Carmen. She arrived in 15 minutes. She wore a blue blazer. She carried a leather bag. She checked my identification. She watched me sign. Her stamp came down hard. Thud. Like a heartbeat. Like a door closing. By 4 o'clock it was done. The trust was locked. The assets sat behind glass. I could see them. No one else could touch them. Sandra walked me to my car. The sun was lower now. The air smelled like cut grass. She put her hand on my shoulder. She said I had carried them long enough. She said it was time to set the box down. I nodded. I got in my car. I drove home. The house was quiet when I arrived. I made tea. Earl Grey with milk. I sat at the kitchen table. The same table where I had written checks. For insurance. For repairs. For weddings. For a son who was waiting for me to die. I sipped my tea. It was hot and bitter. I thought about Alan. What he would say. What he would do. He would be sad. But he would not be surprised. He had seen this coming. That is why we wrote the clause. That is why we built the deadbolt. I finished my tea. I rinsed the cup. I put it in the dishwasher. Then I walked through the house. Turning off lights. Checking locks. Doing what I always did. But tonight felt different. Tonight I had drawn a line. Not in anger. Not in revenge. Just in truth. The trust was mine to protect. And I was protecting it. From people who saw me as an obstacle. From people who toasted my death. I climbed the stairs. I got ready for bed. I lay in the dark. The house was silent. Outside a car passed. Then nothing. I thought about the voicemail. Once she is out of the way. I was not out of the way. I was standing in it. And I was not moving. Not for Paris. Not for tax season. Not for anyone. I closed my eyes. Sleep came slowly. But it came. And when it did, I dreamed of doors. Heavy doors. With locks that held. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. Sunday morning I woke at 6. The sky was pale gray through the curtains. I made coffee. Strong and black. I sat at the kitchen table. The house was quiet. I knew what I had to do today. At 7 I called a locksmith. A company Alan had used years ago. The man who answered said he could come at 9. I said that would be fine. At 8 I drove to the house I had bought for them. I knocked on the door. No answer. I knocked again. Jason opened it. His hair was messy from sleep. He looked surprised to see me. I told him I needed the key back. The key to the main house. He asked why. I said I was changing the locks. His face shifted. Confusion first. Then something harder. He asked if this was about the wedding. I said it was about boundaries. He said I was overreacting. I held out my hand. He did not move. I waited. Finally Brianna appeared behind him. She handed me the key. Her face was smooth and blank. I thanked her. I drove back home. The locksmith arrived at 9 exactly. His name was Tom. He wore a blue shirt with his name stitched on. He had kind eyes. The kind that do not ask questions. I showed him every door. Front door. back door, garage, even the potting shed. The one with the crooked door. The one Jason had painted red in 5th grade. Tom worked quietly. The sound of drilling filled the house. Metal on metal. Something final about it. By 11 he was done. 6 new locks. 6 new keys. He handed them to me on a plain ring. I paid him in cash. He said to call if I needed anything else. I locked the door behind him. I tested each lock twice. They all held. At noon I drove to Capital Mutual, the bank where Alan and I had kept our accounts. For 30 years. Miguel Reyes met me at the door. He was the branch manager. A gentle man with silver hair. He had helped me after Alan died. With the paperwork. With the condolence flowers. With the quiet tasks of grief. I told him I needed to make changes. He led me to his office. The desk was neat and organized. A photo of his grandchildren sat next to his computer. I sat down. I told him what I needed. End Jason's authorizations on all accounts. Remove him from auto transfers. Reset all online credentials. Change all passwords. Miguel did not look surprised. He just nodded slowly. He said he understood. He said I had carried them a long time. He said maybe it was time to set the box down. His voice had the gentleness of a librarian. Someone who handles fragile things. He printed forms. I signed them one by one. My signature was steady. Each line felt like a release. A weightlifting. By 1 o'clock it was done. My accounts were mine alone. No one else could access them. No one else could see them. Miguel walked me to the door. He shook my hand. He said to take care of myself. I said I would. I drove home. My shoulders felt lighter. Just a fraction. But I noticed. At 3 o'clock they arrived. Jason and Brianna. And a man in a steel gray suit. I watched from the window. They walked up the path together. The man carried a leather briefcase. They knocked. I waited 10 seconds. Then I opened the door. Jason tried to smile. It did not reach his eyes. He said they needed to talk. I stepped aside. They came in. The man introduced himself. His name was Richard Voss. He was an attorney. He specialized in family law. He said it with weight. Like it meant something. We sat in the living room. Jason and Brianna on the couch. Richard in the armchair. Me across from them. Richard opened his briefcase. He pulled out papers. Thick papers with colored tabs. He said they were concerned about me. About my well-being. About my ability to manage. He used words like guardianship. And power of attorney. He said it was just in case. For my safety. For my protection. Brianna leaned forward. Her voice was soft and careful. Like a nurse in a commercial. She said they only wanted to help. She said they loved me. She said this was hard for them too. Jason looked at the floor. He did not look at me. I did not speak. I just listened. Richard slid the papers across the coffee table. He pointed to the signature lines. He said it was simple. He said it was temporary. He said it would give us all peace of mind. I looked at the papers. Then I looked at Jason. He was still looking at the floor. I stood up. I walked to the kitchen. They watched me go. I opened a drawer. The one where I keep batteries and twist ties. And one small flash drive. I had put it there yesterday. After I saved the voicemail. I walked back to the living room. I set the flash drive on the coffee table. It was small and black. Smaller than my thumb. I told them to play it. Richard looked confused. Jason looked nervous. I said play it. Richard picked up the flash drive. He looked at Jason. Jason said nothing. Richard pulled out his laptop. He plugged in the drive. He clicked the file. The room filled with sound. Car engine. Rustling. Then Jason's voice. Once she is out of the way, the trust unlocks. Brianna's laugh. Paris before tax season. The sound of cups clinking. The room went silent. The kind of silence that has weight. Richard's pen stopped midair. Brianna's face went pale. Jason finally looked at me. His mouth opened. Nothing came out. I let the silence sit. Let it grow. Let it fill every corner. Then I spoke. My voice was calm. Steady. I said the trust was sealed. I said the house was mine. I said the accounts were closed to them. I said if they wanted a conversation we could have one. But it would require honesty. If they wanted control they could look somewhere else. Richard closed his laptop. He put it back in his briefcase. He stood up. He said there seemed to be a misunderstanding. I said there was no misunderstanding. He said he would be in touch. I said that would not be necessary. He left first. Brianna followed. Her heels clicked on the hardwood. Jason stood at the door. He said it was a joke. Just a stupid joke. I did not respond. He said I was being unreasonable. I still said nothing. He left. The door closed behind him. I locked it. All 3 locks. I stood in the hallway. The house was quiet again. But it felt different now. It felt like mine. That night I made tea. I sat in Alan's chair. The one by the window. I thought of the house I had bought for them with my savings. Its lights were still on. Shadows moved behind the curtains. I wondered what they were saying. What they were planning. But I did not wonder long. I had said what needed saying. I had done what needed doing. The rest was not my concern. I finished my tea. I rinsed the cup. I turned off the lights. I went to bed. Sleep came easier tonight, because I had drawn the line. And I was standing behind it. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. Monday morning came cold and gray. I woke at dawn. My body knew something was coming. The kind of knowing that sits in your bones. I made coffee. I drank it standing at the window. The house I had bought for them was dark. No lights. No movement. I wondered if they had left. But their car was still there. At 9 o'clock they came back. Jason and Brianna. And Richard Voss in his steel gray suit. This time they brought thicker papers. I watched them walk up the path. Their faces were set. Determined. I let them knock twice before I opened the door. Richard spoke first. He said they needed to try again. He said emotions had run high yesterday. He said we all needed to think clearly. I stepped aside. They came in. This time Brianna sat in my chair. The one by the window. The one Alan used to read in. She crossed her legs. She smiled. It was a smile I had not seen before. Sharp at the edges. Richard laid out new papers. He said these were revised. More protective. More reasonable. He used words like temporary conservatorship. And limited decision-making authority. He said it was really for my benefit. Jason nodded along. He said they had talked to their friends. Other people with aging parents. This was what responsible children did. Brianna touched my armrest. She said we were only trying to help. She said I seemed confused lately. Forgetful. Not quite myself. She said it so sweetly. Like concern dipped in honey. I looked at her hand on my armrest. Then I looked at her face. I did not speak. I stood up. I walked to the kitchen. I could hear them whispering behind me. I opened the drawer. I took out the flash drive. The same one from yesterday. I walked back to the living room. I set it on the coffee table, right on top of their new papers. Richard sighed. He said we had already heard that. He said it proved nothing. Just a joke in poor taste. I told him to play it again. He looked annoyed. But he did it. He opened his laptop. He plugged in the drive. The voices filled the room again. Once she is out of the way, the trust unlocks. Paris before tax season. When it finished, I did not move. I just looked at them. Jason said it was out of context. Brianna said I was twisting things. Richard said recordings could be misleading. I pushed their papers back across the table. They slid to the floor. Like dead leaves. I said the trust was sealed. I said the house was mine. I said if they wanted a relationship we could build one. But it would start with honesty. If they wanted control they could leave. Brianna stood up. Her face was not sweet anymore. She said I was being selfish. She said I was punishing them. She said they had given up so much for me. Jason said nothing. He just stared at his hands. Richard collected his papers from the floor. He said this was not over. He said they had options. Legal options. I said I had options too. And a very good lawyer. They left. The door closed hard. Not quite a slam, but close. I locked all 3 locks. Then I stood in the hallway. My heart was beating fast. But my hands were steady. I had won this round. But I knew there would be more. That afternoon I cleaned. I needed to move. To do something with my hands. I started in the living room. Dusting the shelves. Straightening the books. That is when I saw it. A small blue light. Winking from the hallway trim. Tiny. Almost invisible. But I had spent 40 years noticing details. Finding things that did not belong. I moved closer. It was a camera. Small and black. Mounted in the corner. Hidden behind the doorframe. My stomach went cold. I checked the other rooms. The bedroom. Another camera in the smoke detector. The closet. One more tucked behind a hat box. 3 cameras. All pointing at my life. I did not touch them. Not yet. I called Deshaun Pike. He was a friend of Alan's. They had worked together years ago. Deshaun knew computers. Knew security. Knew how to find things people tried to hide. He said he could come right away. He arrived in 30 minutes. He brought a black bag full of equipment. He was a big man with gentle movements. He did not ask questions. He just worked. He swept the house room by room. His scanner beeped 3 times. Hallway. Bedroom. Closet. He took photos of each camera. He traced the signals. They were all connected to the same cloud account. An account registered to Brianna Lake. My daughter-in-law. The woman who had called me Ms. Ruth. Who had brought buttercream cupcakes. Who had hugged me at the door. Deshaun asked if I wanted them removed. I said not yet. I said I wanted documentation first. He nodded. He understood. He wrote a report. 3 pages. Clear and technical. Location of each device. Cloud account information. Installation dates. The oldest camera had been installed 5 months ago. January. Right after I asked about wedding details. They had been watching me for 5 months. Recording me. Studying me. Looking for proof I was incompetent. Or maybe just waiting. Waiting for me to fall. To forget something. To seem confused. So they could use it against me. Deshaun left the report on my kitchen table. He said to call if I needed anything else. I thanked him. I locked the door behind him. I sat at the table. I read the report 3 times. Betrayal is a slap. Quick and sharp. Surveillance is a stain. It seeps into everything. Every moment I thought was private. Every morning I walked past in my nightgown. Every night I cried in my bedroom. All of it recorded. All of it saved. All of it waiting to be used. I made tea. Earl Grey. Strong and bitter. I drank it slowly. I thought about the cameras. About what they meant. This was not just about money. This was about control. About making me small. About turning my own home into evidence. I thought about taking the cameras down. Smashing them. Throwing them away. But that would alert them. They would know I had found them. They would adjust. Try something else. No. Better to leave them. Better to let them watch. Let them record. While I built my case. I opened a notebook. The one I kept for grocery lists. I turned to a clean page. At the top I wrote one word. Reclaim. Underneath I made a list. Document everything. Strengthen the trust. Get a psychological evaluation. Prove competence. Protect assets. Build evidence. Each item was small. Manageable. A single step. But together they made a path. A path back to myself. I finished my tea. I rinsed the cup. I looked around my kitchen. My kitchen with its hidden eyes. Its secret watchers. I did not feel afraid. I felt clear. They had made a mistake. They thought surveillance would weaken me. But it had done the opposite. It had shown me exactly who they were. And exactly what I needed to do. I walked through the house. I did not look at the cameras. I just moved normally, making dinner, washing dishes, reading in Alan's chair. Let them watch. Let them record. All they would see was a woman, calm and capable, living her life, while she planned her next move. That night I lay in bed. The camera was somewhere above me. Watching. Recording. I did not care. I closed my eyes. Tomorrow I would call Sandra. Tomorrow I would start building. But tonight I just rested. In the knowledge that I was done being used. Done being watched. Done being treated like an obstacle. I was taking my life back. One locked door at a time. One sealed account at a time. One documented camera at a time. They wanted me out of the way. But I was standing in the center. And I was not moving. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. Tuesday morning I called Sandra. She answered on the first ring. I told her about the cameras. She was quiet for 3 seconds. Then she said one word. Discovery. She said to bring everything to her office. Deshawn's report. The voicemail. Any financial records I had. She said we were building a case now. Not just defending. Building. I told her I would be there in an hour. I gathered the documents. I put them in a manila folder. The folder Alan and I had used for taxes. It still had his handwriting on the tab. 2021. The last year we filed together. I touched the numbers. Then I put the folder in my bag. I drove to Sandra's office. The sky was overcast. Heavy clouds pressing down. Sandra met me at the door. She looked tired, but her eyes were sharp. We went to her office. She cleared her desk. She spread out the documents like cards. Deshawn's report on the left. Financial records in the middle. The voicemail transcript on the right. She studied them for a long time. Not speaking, just reading. Finally she looked up. She said they were building a case for incompetence. That was clear now. The cameras were gathering evidence. Or trying to. She said we needed to build the opposite. Proof of capacity. Proof of sound judgment. Proof that I was fully in control. She pulled out a notepad. She started making a list. First item, psychological evaluation. She knew a doctor. Dr. Levin. He specialized in geriatric assessments. He was thorough and fair. She said she would schedule it. Second item: financial audit. Show that all my accounts were in order. All bills paid. No signs of confusion or mismanagement. Third item: witness statements. People who could testify to my competence. Neighbors, friends, anyone who saw me regularly. She looked at me. She said this would not be easy. She said they would fight hard. She said I needed to be ready. I told her I was ready. She nodded. She picked up her phone. She called Dr. Levin's office. She scheduled me for Thursday morning. 2 days away. She said to bring identification. And a list of medications. And anything else that showed my daily routine. I wrote it down. When I got home I made the list. Medications: blood pressure, vitamin D, baby aspirin. Nothing unusual. Nothing that suggested cognitive decline. Daily routine: wake at 6. Coffee and breakfast. Light exercise. Reading. Errands. Cooking. A normal life. A competent life. I put the list in an envelope. I set it by my purse. On Wednesday morning I walked to Mrs. Patel's house. She lived next door. We had been neighbors for 23 years. She was in her garden, trimming roses. Her hands moved with practiced ease. She looked up when she saw me. She smiled. Then she saw my face. The smile faded. She asked what was wrong. I told her about the cameras. She went very still. Then she set down her shears. She said her son had done the same thing. Last year. He called them security cameras. For her protection. But she knew what they were. Eyes in her home. Watching. Judging. Waiting for her to fail. We sat under her crepe myrtle. The branches made dappled shadows. She told me her story. Her son had tried to take control. Of her finances. Of her decisions. He said it was for her own good. She had fought back. With a lawyer. With evidence. With her own fierce will. She won. But it cost her the relationship. She had not spoken to him in 8 months. She said some prices are worth paying. I asked if she would write a statement. Testifying to my competence. To my daily habits. To my sound mind. She said yes without hesitation. She went inside. She came back with paper and pen. She wrote for 15 minutes. Her handwriting was neat and strong. When she finished she signed it. She dated it. She said shame was not ours to carry. It belonged to the children. The ones who betrayed trust. I thanked her. I walked home with her statement in my hand. On Thursday morning I went to Dr. Levin's office. It was in a medical building downtown. 3rd floor. The waiting room smelled like coffee and old magazines. I checked in. I sat down. I waited. 10 minutes later a nurse called my name. She led me to an office. Dr. Levin stood when I entered. He was younger than I expected. Maybe 50. He had kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. He shook my hand. He asked me to sit. The evaluation took 2 hours. He asked about presidents, current and past. He asked me to remember 3 words. Apple, table, penny. He asked me to repeat them later. I did. He showed me patterns. Asked me to complete them. He gave me math problems. Simple ones. Then harder ones. He asked about my daily routine. What I ate for breakfast. How I managed my bills. Whether I drove. Whether I cooked. I answered everything clearly. Once I corrected his grammar. He had said less when he meant fewer. He smiled when I pointed it out. He said that was noted. At the end he asked one more question. He asked if I felt safe at home. I told him about the cameras. About the voicemail. About the lawyers and the papers. He listened without interrupting. When I finished, he closed his notebook. He said the report would be ready Monday. He said I should not worry. I thanked him. I drove home. My hands were steady on the wheel. On Friday, Sandra called. She said she had filed preliminary motions to block any guardianship attempts, to freeze their legal actions, to buy us time. She said the hearing was set for next Friday. 1 week away. She said to prepare myself. It would not be pleasant. They would say things, ugly things, things designed to hurt. I said I understood. I said I would be ready. That weekend I prepared. I went through my files. I organized receipts, bank statements, bills paid on time, insurance up to date, everything in order. On Sunday, Mrs. Patel brought over another neighbor, Mr. Chen from 3 houses down. He was 82, sharp as glass. He said he would testify too. He said he saw me every morning, walking, tending my garden, always alert, always capable. He wrote his statement at my kitchen table. I made tea. We sat together. 3 neighbors who understood that aging was not the same as failing, that needing help was not the same as being helpless, that our children's fear did not define our capacity. On Monday, Dr. Levin's report arrived. Sandra called to read it to me. No cognitive impairment, strong executive function, excellent memory, clear reasoning, elevated stress consistent with familial conflict, but otherwise completely sound. She said it was perfect. She said it was exactly what we needed. On Tuesday, she filed the final documents. Deshawn's report about the cameras, Dr. Levin's evaluation, the financial records, the witness statements, the voicemail transcript, everything stacked together. A wall of evidence. On Wednesday, I ironed the teal dress, the one I had never worn. I would wear it to court, not as mother of the groom, as a woman defending her life. On Thursday, I did nothing. I just rested. I sat in Alan's chair. I looked out at the garden. The roses were blooming, pink and yellow and red. Alan had planted them years ago. They came back every spring. Faithful, enduring. I would be like the roses. I would endure. On Friday morning, I woke at 5. I made coffee. I dressed carefully. Teal dress, champagne shoes, simple earrings. I looked at myself in the mirror. I looked like a woman who knew her worth. Sandra picked me up at 8. She drove. I sat in the passenger seat, my purse in my lap. Inside was everything I needed. The flash drive, Mrs. Patel's statement, a copy of Dr. Levin's report. And one more thing, the wedding handkerchief, the one I had embroidered 40 years ago. For Jason's future wedding, I had added one line yesterday. In lavender thread, it said, "And I choose me." I touched it once. Then I closed my purse. The courthouse appeared ahead. Gray stone, high windows. Sandra parked. We walked up the steps together. Her heels clicking, my breath steady. At the door she stopped. She looked at me. She said, "Mothers bring receipts." I said, "Mothers bring more." We walked inside. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. The courtroom hummed like a refrigerator. Constant, indifferent, cold air pushing through the vents. The walls were pale yellow. The floor was scuffed tile. Everything worn smooth by other people's battles. Sandra and I sat at a table on the left. Jason and Brianna sat across the aisle. Richard Voss beside them, his steel gray suit pressed and perfect. Jason wore a navy blazer. He looked nervous. He kept adjusting his tie. Brianna wore cream and pearls. She looked confident, like someone who had already won. The judge entered at 9:30. Judge Patricia Moreno. She was maybe 60, gray hair pulled back, reading glasses on a chain. She looked tired, like she had seen this story before. We all stood. She told us to sit. Richard stood first. He introduced his case. He spoke about concern, about responsibility, about an aging mother who needed protection. He used words like vulnerable, and declining capacity, and family obligation. He made it sound noble, like they were rescuing me. He called Brianna to speak. She stood. She walked to the front. She spoke about my forgetfulness, about times I seemed confused, about bills I allegedly forgot to pay, about medication I supposedly mixed up. None of it was true, but she said it sweetly, with tears in her eyes. She dabbed at them with a tissue. She said it broke her heart. She said they only wanted what was best for me. The judge listened. Her face gave nothing away. Then Richard called Jason. My son stood. He walked slowly to the front. He would not look at me. He talked about my pound cake. How I used to bake it for him. How I had not made it in months. That was a lie. I had made it 2 weeks ago. For a wedding I was not invited to. He talked about how I seemed erratic lately. How I had changed the locks without warning. How I had cut off his access to accounts. He made it sound unreasonable. Like I was the one acting irrationally. He used the word love 3 times. But his voice was hollow. The judge took notes. Then she looked at Sandra. Sandra stood. She was calm, steady. She introduced our evidence. She started with the financial records. She showed that every bill was paid on time, every account balanced, every medication properly managed, no confusion, no decline, just a woman handling her own affairs. Then she introduced Dr. Levin's report. She read sections aloud. No cognitive impairment, strong executive function, excellent memory and reasoning. The judge leaned forward. She asked to see the full report. Sandra handed it to the bailiff. The judge read it slowly. Her expression shifted, just slightly. Then Sandra called me to speak. I stood. My legs were steady. I walked to the front of the courtroom. I did not look at Jason. I looked at the judge. She asked me to explain my actions. The locks. The accounts. The trust modifications. I spoke clearly. I said I had discovered a recording. An accidental voicemail, in which my son and his wife discussed my death. As a financial opportunity. The courtroom went silent. Even the hum seemed to stop. The judge asked if I had the recording. I said yes. Sandra handed the flash drive to the bailiff. The judge plugged it into her computer. She listened with headphones. Her face did not move. But I saw her jaw tighten. When it finished, she removed the headphones. She asked if there was more. Sandra introduced Deshawn's report. About the cameras. 3 cameras hidden in my home. Recording me without consent. Installed by Brianna Lake. 5 months ago. The judge read the report. Then she looked at Brianna. Brianna's face had gone pale. Her confidence had cracked. The judge asked if this was true. Richard tried to speak. He said the cameras were for safety. For monitoring. In case of emergency. The judge cut him off. She said that was not what she asked. She asked Brianna directly. Brianna said yes. Her voice was small now. The tissue forgotten. She said they were worried about me. The judge did not respond. She turned to Sandra. She asked if there were witness statements. Sandra presented them. Mrs. Patel's statement. Mr. Chen's statement. both describing a competent woman. Alert. Capable. Managing her own life. The judge read each one. Then she set them down. She looked at Jason. She asked him about the voicemail. Jason said it was a joke. Just words taken out of context. The judge asked what the context was. Jason did not answer. She asked again. He said they were frustrated. He said I had been controlling. He said they just wanted their independence. The judge asked about the wedding. About why I was not invited. Jason said it was a small ceremony. Just immediate family. The judge asked if I was not immediate family. Jason did not answer. The courtroom was completely silent. The judge removed her glasses. She cleaned them with a cloth. She put them back on. Then she spoke. She said guardianship was denied. She said the evidence showed clear capacity. She said the petitioners had demonstrated ulterior motives. She used words like undue influence, and attempted coercion, and breach of trust. She said all access to my accounts would remain revoked. She said all trust provisions would remain in place. She said the cameras must be removed immediately. She said if they were not, she would consider it harassment. She said the case was closed. The gavel came down. One sharp crack. Final. I sat very still. Sandra put her hand on my arm. She did not say anything. She did not need to. Across the aisle, Brianna was crying. Real tears now, not performed ones. Richard was packing his briefcase. His movements quick and tight. Jason sat frozen, staring at nothing. I looked at him once. My son, who had wanted me out of the way, who had hidden cameras in my home, who had called my love controlling. I felt something shift in my chest. Not quite grief, not quite relief, just clarity. I stood up. Sandra stood with me. We walked toward the door. Outside the courtroom, reporters waited. Cameras and microphones. Someone asked my name. Someone asked for a statement. I walked past them all. Sandra guided me with a hand on my back. We walked down the courthouse steps. The sun was bright, too bright after the pale yellow walls. I stopped at the bottom. I turned to Sandra. I thanked her. She said I had done this. I had built the case. I had stood firm. I had saved myself. I said she had given me the tools. She smiled. We walked to her car. She drove me home. Neither of us spoke. There was nothing left to say. When we pulled up to my house, I saw them. Jason and Brianna, standing by their car in the driveway. Waiting. I told Sandra I would be fine. She asked if I was sure. I said yes. She waited until I got out. Then she drove away slowly. I walked toward them. Jason stepped forward. He started to speak. I held up my hand. I said I did not want to hear it. Not today. Maybe not ever. I said they had 1 week to move out. Out of the house I had bought for them. Out of my life. Brianna started to cry again. She said they had nowhere to go. I said that was not my concern. Jason said I was his mother. I said mothers get invited to weddings. I walked past them. I unlocked my door. All 3 locks. I went inside. I closed the door behind me. I stood in the hallway. The house was quiet. Mine. Truly mine. I walked to the kitchen. I made tea. I sat at the table. The same table where I had written checks. Where I had baked cookies. Where I had believed I was building a family. Now I was building something else. A life that belonged to me. I sipped my tea. It was hot and bitter and perfect. Outside, a car engine started. I heard them drive away. I did not look out the window. I just sat, breathing in, breathing out, feeling the weight lift. One lock at a time. One decision at a time. One boundary at a time. I was free. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. That night I revised my will. Sandra met me at her office. It was after hours. The building was quiet. Just the two of us and the hum of lights. She had coffee ready, strong and black. We sat at her conference table. The old will was in front of us. The one Alan and I had written together. Everything to Jason. The house. The accounts. The trust eventually. All of it designed to protect him. To provide for him. I looked at it for a long time. Then I told Sandra what I wanted instead. 60% to a foundation. One that helped women aging alone. Women pushed out. Women fighting back. Women reclaiming their lives. 20% to the public library. They had given me refuge after Alan died. Quiet rooms. Books that asked nothing. Peace when I needed it most. 10% to the hospice. The one that wrapped Alan's last days in kindness. Nurses who knew when to speak. And when to just sit. 5% to Mrs. Patel. For emergencies she would never admit to having. The remaining 5% split among small charities. Food banks. Literacy programs. Places that fed people who were hungry. In all the ways hunger exists. Sandra asked about Jason. I said his name could stay in the document. On a page that did not include numbers. A page that simply acknowledged his existence. Nothing more. She wrote it all down. Her pen moving steadily. When she finished she looked up. She asked if I was certain. I said I had never been more certain of anything. We signed the papers. 3 copies. She would file them Monday. I drove home in the dark. The streets were empty. Just me and the yellow lights. When I pulled into my driveway I saw the house I had bought for them. Still lit. Still occupied. But not for long. I had given them 1 week. 5 days had passed. On Saturday morning they left. I watched from the kitchen window. Jason carried boxes to a rented truck. Brianna followed with trash bags and lamps. They made 6 trips. They did not knock on my door. They did not say goodbye. By noon the truck was full. They drove away. I waited 10 minutes. Then I walked to the house I had bought for them. I unlocked the door. The rooms were empty. Just dust and dents where furniture had been. The air smelled stale. I opened all the windows. Let the fresh air in. Let the old air out. I would clean it properly next week. For now I just stood there. In the empty space. Feeling lighter. On Monday I started looking for apartments. Small ones. Near the water. I had always loved the ocean. The sound of waves. The smell of salt. Alan and I used to walk the pier on Sundays. Back when his knees still worked. Back when time felt endless. I found a place by Wednesday. A small apartment 3 blocks from the bay. 1 bedroom. A narrow balcony. Peeling paint on the railings. Windows that stuck when you tried to open them. But there was a sliver of water visible. Like a coin between the buildings. Blue and constant. I signed the lease that afternoon. I would move in 2 weeks. On Thursday I found a circle. An art group that met at the community center. Women mostly. Ages ranging from 50 to 80. They painted on Thursday mornings. Nothing serious. Just watercolors and conversation. I had not painted since college. 45 years ago. But I wanted to try again. I wanted to do something with no purpose. Except the doing itself. I went to my first session the following Thursday. The room smelled like paint and coffee. The women were kind. They did not ask questions. They just handed me a brush. showed me where the paper was. Let me sit. I painted badly. A tree that looked like a cloud. A sky that bled into the ground. But it felt good. The brush moving. The color spreading. No one judging. No one watching. Just women making things. After class, a woman named Diane invited me to lunch. She was 72. Bright lipstick and silver hair. We went to a diner near the center. We ordered soup and sandwiches. She told me about her daughter, who had tried to move her into a facility. Against her will, she had fought it, with lawyers and doctors and pure stubbornness. She won, but the daughter had not spoken to her since. 2 years of silence. She said some losses were worth it. I told her about Jason, about the wedding, about the cameras, about the courtroom. She reached across the table. She held my hand. She said I had done the right thing. She said boundaries were love. Just a different kind. We finished our lunch. We exchanged phone numbers. On the way out, she hugged me. Hard and quick, like sealing a promise. In early June, a group called Mothers in Silence reached out. They had heard about my case. Someone from the courthouse had talked. Word travels in small circles. They asked if I would speak at their monthly meeting. About boundaries. About reclaiming power. About choosing yourself. I said yes. The meeting was at a church basement. Fluorescent lights and metal folding chairs. 20 women showed up. Some older than me. Some younger. All carrying the same weight. The weight of being pushed aside. I stood at the front. I brought the wedding handkerchief with me. The one I had embroidered 40 years ago. For Jason's wedding. For a day I thought would be joyful. I showed them the original line. Everything I am, I give to you. Then I showed them what I had added. In lavender thread. Stitched underneath. And I choose me. I told them my story. Not with venom. Not with bitterness. Just with truth. The wedding I was excluded from. The money I had given freely. The voicemail that changed everything. The cameras in my home. The courtroom battle. The choice I made to stand firm. When I finished, the room was quiet. Then a woman in the back started clapping. Slowly at first. Then others joined. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just steady. Like agreement. Like recognition. After the talk, a stranger approached me. Her name was Carol. She was maybe 55. She pressed my hands between hers. She said I had made room for her to breathe. She said she had been drowning. In guilt. In obligation. In the belief that good mothers never said no. She said I had shown her another way. I did not know what to say. So I just held her hands. And nodded. On a Sunday in late June I moved. Mrs. Patel helped me pack. Mr. Chen brought boxes. Diane came with sandwiches. We worked all day. Wrapping dishes. Folding linens. Sorting books. By evening the truck was loaded. I walked through the empty house one last time. The rooms echoed. I touched the walls. The kitchen where Alan and I had cooked together. The bedroom where he had died quietly. The hallway where Jason had grown up. All of it still there. But I was ready to leave. My new apartment was small. But it was mine. I arranged my furniture. I hung my pictures. I opened the balcony door. The sound of the ocean drifted in. Soft and constant. That night I sat on the balcony. The air was cool. Salty. I could see the sliver of water. Dark and moving. I thought about Alan. About how he would be proud. About how he had known this might be necessary. That is why we built the deadbolt. I thought about Jason. About the boy he had been. About the man he became. I still loved him. But I loved myself more now. That was new. That was hard won. That was mine. On Thursday I went back to the painting group. This time my tree looked more like a tree. My sky stayed in the sky. Diane smiled when she saw it. She said I was getting better. I said I was getting free. She understood. On a warm evening in July I walked the pier. The sun was setting, orange and pink and gold. Families scattered along the railings. Children throwing bread to gulls. Couples holding hands. I walked alone, but I did not feel lonely. I felt whole. For the first time in years. Maybe ever. I had spent so much time being a wife. Being a mother. Being a caretaker. Now I was just Ruth. 68 years old. Living by the water. Painting badly. Speaking truthfully. Choosing myself. I reached the end of the pier. I stood looking out at the water. Endless and dark. I thought about the archive. The one I had kept for 40 years. Other people's histories. Preserved. Protected. Filed away. Now I was creating my own. Not someone else's story. Mine. Filed under my own name. Organized by my own hand. Wholly and completely mine. The wind picked up. It smelled like salt and freedom. I closed my eyes. I breathed it in. Then I turned around and walked back toward my new life. One step at a time. One choice at a time. One breath at a time. Finally living inside my own archive. Filed, named, and wholly mine.